Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, or if you're new, welcome. We're gonna get back into more Amberlynn Reid content. We are back with another retro react. This is the emotional look into my past, part 1. So we're gonna guess this is Amber's gaslighting origin story, because, well, we all know the girl can't tell the truth. So we're going to get into it and see how bad it is.
Hi everyone. I kind of wanted to talk about something different today. Um,
Alright, so we're starting off the video on landscape instead of portrait. We're doing good so far.
I made this vlog, channel, whatever you want to call it, for a few reasons.
It really comes down to two things, which is attention and validation. And I mean, she gets one of those things, definitely not the other, especially with the way she's acting in the Q&As lately.
I enjoy watching so many different kinds of videos, whether it's funny or whether it's beauty gurus or weight loss vlogs or just regular people vlogs. And I like what each and every single one of them has to offer. So, as you can tell, I've put a lot of vlogs up, I put random tags up. Well, today I figured maybe you can get to know me and why I am the way I am now.
Yeah, there was a couple videos, but there wasn't really anything reaction worthy. A couple minutes of her talking about like the squat challenge or dancing with Crystal or like playing with cats and stuff like that. Like nothing interesting. So we skipped over and now we're here.
So this video is going to be about my childhood and what led me up to where I am now. And I hope you stick around to watch it. So, I was born December 27th, 1990 in Key West, Florida. I do not remember.
Look, I understand there are memes about Florida and there are so many running jokes about Florida, but there has to be some amazing people from there. All I'm going to say is that I am not surprised Amber is from Florida.
Anything about there at all. I moved to California with my parents when I was just a baby. And I grew up in California. But let's rewind a little bit.
Amber, I know that we're having an origin story, but like you don't have to go any further back from being an infant. Like you're not going to remember anything then, and we definitely don't need to talk about your conception story, okay? Like we don't need those kind of details.
I remember as a younger girl, I did have a very, very hard childhood. My parents were drug addicts. They abused each other, neglected each other, but it's not just about the negative things in my life. I can remember the positives. We'd go camping, and I loved the outdoors as a little girl. I was actually called the golden child because I was so tan. I was always on my bike, I was always swimming, and I was always chubby then too, but I didn't care. I went out and did things that little kids did.
Honestly, I've never heard that before. Like I have never heard the words golden child come out of her mouth. And like I still don't believe for a second she would ever like camping. I feel like she'd be the type of person to constantly complain about it, or probably enjoy it up until like nighttime, and that's when the real complaining will start.
Um, but as I got older, I started realizing more so that my parents weren't like normal parents. Their location of using drugs was in the bathroom. So every time I'd go in there, I knew that when they came out, they'd be a different person. It wasn't a good way to live, but I feel like it did make me stronger in a way.
Yeah, no, like you did not become a stronger person. In fact, you actually became your parents. You're very abusive and you have a codependency on food, not drugs, but food. So like you didn't become stronger, you just became a mirror image of them.
I went through a lot. When I was 8 years old, my mom said that she was pregnant with her third child. I already had a brother, and he's younger, so I'm the older child, and I was really happy. I was thrilled, actually. I knew she was doing drugs with him. Any 8-year-old wouldn't have a clue, but I had to grow up. I had to, in a way, be my own parent.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of true too. Like, if you grow up with neglectful parents, you have to kind of be self sufficient on your own and become your own parent. But at the same time, if you also have younger siblings, you can adopt a mentality where you either become their mother or their father, which isn't good for a younger child, especially when you're trying to take care of yourself as a child. It's very hard. But I mean, I'm not saying Amber has gone through that. I know personally people who have gone through that, and it's a very hard thing to get out of their mindset because that becomes almost their entire personality, where it's like, oh, I raised my siblings and I'm nothing but a mother or I'm nothing but a caretaker. It's a very hard role to kind of get out of, especially when you have that childhood trauma. And with Amber, she's adopted more of the childlike mindset. Now that she's an adult, she's reverting back to a child, which I would say that Amber's always had that kind of child mindset because she's never really had to face the actions and consequences of an adult. She's always had people to bail her out. And I would say go to therapy, but at the same time, for Amber, it would require her to one, listen and take advice, and two, put it into practice. And I mean, Amber's never really going to do that.
So, when my brother was born, he was so adorable and gosh, I loved him. As days went on, I did kind of take the role of being a parent in a way. I still remember one time in particular when my parents were on so many drugs that they were like passed out. My baby brother was crying and I wasn't sure why, so I went into the room of where they were, and it was because his crib was by a curtain and the curtain string was wrapped around his neck.
You know, that's a terrifying thought for an infant because, like, as an adult, obviously when you're choking, you still freak out, but you know that you need to calm down and stay just rational in an attempt to try to save your life. Where a baby's going to exhale and scream in an attempt to try and get the parents' attention because obviously it's in trouble and it won't be able to breathe back in. So, like, it's even something even more dangerous for a toddler or an infant than an adult. God, that's terrifying to think about.
I will never forget that day as long as I live. Um,
She says with zero emotion.
Even now it's emotional for me. His face was purple, he was screaming and crying, and to put it shortly, I had to save his life. And I did. And then I realized that I don't think my parents will ever change. I was a 9-year old.
Emma just said she was 9, but I think I remember her saying she was taken away at 8. Now, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure she said 8 years old they were taken away. They did have a trial run in which they could potentially get their children back, but like, who on earth would give their children back to the parents knowing the child could be in danger with them being on drugs again? Like, did they relapse or did they stop just to get their children back and then started back up? Did Amber misremember? Is she lying? You know, you can't really give her much grace because she is a compulsive liar and you just don't know whether or not she's telling the truth.
And I was taking on the role of being a mother.
I think I know what Amber means by being in a parental role. I don't really think it's a parental role, but more of an adult sibling or an older sibling role where you have to take care of the younger ones while mom and dad are doing something else. Like if a kid wants a drink, they want something to eat. Or if mom and dad are occupied while looking after the baby, you go outside and you look after your brother to make sure they don't get kidnapped. That type of stuff. Like actively taking on somewhat parental role while also being a child, just doing normal things to make sure the younger ones are okay. And I think Emma may have to overextend herself because her parents were drug addicts, but at the same time, I don't think she was being Mary Poppins. And I do understand to a higher degree because I also looked after my cousins. And when you have a bunch of cousins, I mean, a lot of cousins because I come from a very large family. It is a very hard thing to do because let's face it, children are stupid, and when you get a lot of them in the same room or in the same house, they are in competition with each other to die in the stupidest way possible.
So one day when I was at school, I think third or fourth grade, I got a call to the office. There were police there, and I wasn't sure what was really happening. And come to find out, I was being put into foster care. I was being put into foster care with my one brother, but my little brother was being put into a separate home. After being in foster care for over a year, I was actually in a children's shelter for longer than that.
Dude, am I gaslighting myself? Because I distinctly remember Amber saying 8 years old. Like, did she has said 8, right? Like, I am 100% certain I heard 8 years old.
I found out that my brother was actually going to be an adopted child. He was going to be put in closed adoption, which meant I would never be allowed to see him again.
And thank the Lord for that, because that boy does not need you in his life, Amber.
It broke my heart, and it still does. And it happened 12 years ago. In a way, I felt like my own child was being adopted.
I mean, I can understand if you take on a parental role, but at the same time, Amber overinflates her importance in order to make herself even more of a victim. Like, dude, that wasn't your own child, that was your brother, and you can have an attachment issue with being like that parental figure in his life, but at the same time, it's not the same thing as losing your child. It really isn't.
So it was just a hard time for me. After trying to accept it, I was thrown around into different foster homes and with my other brother, and soon we got separated. We were separated for a few years. It was very hard. A lot of the time I felt alone and just confused with life. When I turned 12, my parents finally decided to get their act together, and
At this point in time, I was like hardcore doubting myself, and I was gaslighting myself into believing that I was wrong. So I checked out multiple videos. I went to like Mr. Snowflake, I went to The Ankle, I went to Karina Kaboom, Salty Crap. I checked a bunch of different videos, and she has said multiple different ages. She has said 8, she has said 7, she has said like 10 and 12, and all these different numbers. So she is all over the place with this. So I don't know what to believe at this point. I mean, nothing. I don't believe anything. Amber, you don't even exist at this point.
we went to court and we had a 6-month trial to live with them. And that trial turned into 2 years. But it was a failed trial. The whole time my family was just getting worse and worse. I started smoking marijuana.
Also, I just want to apologize for all the throat noises. Like, she's so quiet, but at the same time, they're just so disgusting.
Their drug addiction went to a whole new level. We actually lived in a trailer. That's mainly what I lived. Whenever I lived with my parents, that's mainly where we lived. It was the smallest trailer ever. And I never saw my dad, even though we were under the same roof. He had people coming in and out of the home all hours of the day, all hours of the night to buy his drugs. My parents actually got separated at this time, which was hard to handle.
Honestly, yeah, pretty bad for Amberlynn, but at the same time, pretty good for Mamalyn because, like, she is now thriving. She's got a fiance, she's spending time with her mom, with her daughter. Whether or not that's good, that's really up for her to decide. She's got just people in her life that love and care for her. She's sober, she's doing great. So, you know, I'm happy that Mamalyn was able to get out of it. Shit parent, but at least, you know, she's doing better in life.
I guess it was best for them, but it was still hard. One day I was actually texting a friend and I told her that I wanted to die and I didn't want to be alive anymore. her mom found the text message, and her mom brought the text to my school, and I ended up being put in a mental hospital.
Oh shit, all that did.
I didn't think I needed it. I wasn't really gonna kill myself. I was just really depressed, and
I don't think I needed it. Yeah, that's usually what mentally ill people say, Amber. Also, that is what we call manipulation. I wasn't actually going to do it. I was just venting by saying that I want to unalive myself, getting validation from people I care about. Psycho.
it was just life was not going how I wanted it to. When I got that 6-month trial to be with my family again, I honestly thought that they were going to change forever, but they didn't. Things got so much worse, and I didn't know how to handle it.
I mean, I know that children's services is like woefully incompetent, but I would like to hope they wouldn't just hand the children back to a bunch of drug addicts. Like, I would really hope that, but I wouldn't be surprised. There's probably a bunch of stories out there like that.
And saying I was going to die felt like the easiest answer. Um, I was in the mental hospital for about 6 days, and obviously they diagnosed me with depression, which I already knew. I was diagnosed with depression since the age of 10, and I was taking antidepressants for I don't even know how long. But after I left the mental hospital, I took a whole new meaning of life because I saw people in there that were mental. I'm not trying to be mean in any way, but I don't think I was meant to be there, but it did change my life.
Jeez, Amber, that is so tone deaf. She's like, I'm crazy, but I'm not that crazy.
And that I do appreciate. Every day since then, I never wished a day of my life that I wasn't alive.
Yeah, but that's not what Destiny said, and I'm more likely to believe her than I am to believe you.
Somewhere in my younger years, my mom did have another child, and I held him once, and she put him up for closed adoption the day he was born.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Amber read that, like, weird-ass poem about him.
I know my two brothers are out there, and more than anything, I just hope that one day they can look at me and I can look at them and we know that we're family. I miss them every day.
Honestly, Amber, if either of your brothers were raised with basic level common sense, they would see you, see the shit that you do, and say, screw that, I am not going anywhere near her.
Even if I knew one brother longer than the other one, I love them both equally. And more than anything, being able to see them again would mean the world to me. So, as everything got worse and worse within my life, my parents started taking more drugs. Even though my parents were separated, my mom was living down the street with her boyfriend in a different trailer, which was literally 10 feet away. So,
Honestly, I know the story is like semi-true, but at the same time, I feel like she's almost pulling from My Name is Earl or some shit, because like, it's starting to sound familiar.
I was in class yet again, and I get called to the office. About school, I never went. I didn't care about school. Things that were happening at home were ruining my education because that's all I thought about. I'd either miss school or I'd just not care. Like I'd go and I wouldn't do any of the work. School was hard. I got made fun of every single day. Um,
Yeah, but at the same time, you also say that you were, the fat Amber, you were the gross Amber, you were stinky Amber, the big butt Amber, but that you were also the nicest and the kindest and had the most friends, and you were so popular, and you had so many boyfriends and X, Y, and Z, like, all over the place with you, girl.
the few friends I did have actually weren't my friends. They weren't. I mean, the way they treated me isn't how a friend should treat another friend. But every day I was bullied. Um, I was the smelly kid. I was the fat girl. That's how people knew me. I was Fat Amber. I didn't know how to handle it, but I just got bigger and bigger. But as I was in class on one day, I got called to the office. The cops came, and yet again, me and my brother were being put into foster care. You don't know what to do when you're put into strangers' homes. You don't know what to do when you're put into a children's shelter. You kind of just have to go with the flow. It's like you're caged in. It's just hard.
Kind of a weird dichotomy to think about, right? Like, she was talking about how hard it is to grow up in strangers' houses, but then she willingly chose to do that time and time again with every single girlfriend in their family afterwards. Like, Crystal, Casey, Destiny for a short time, moved into Beck, Eric, and Ricky's place, kicked Beck out of the house so that her and wifey could live together. Like, she willingly did that over and over again.
But this time was a little different. I was in the shelter for months, and I had this daily visit with my mom where I was allowed to spend the whole day with her, with my brother as well, once a week. And so we did that, and I was just texting my friend, simply joking, saying I should live with you because she was my best friend at the time.
Damn, Amber was doing that at the age of like 13, 14. Dude, like, you started early.
And little did I know, 2 months later, I was living with her. It was absolutely insane. I don't know how it happened. It happened so quickly, and honestly, at the time, I thought this was beginning to a whole new life that I was gonna love every minute of. But I was definitely wrong.
Alright guys, the video cuts off here. I will come back for a part 2, but it is very late at night. I was going to do both at once, but it is currently 11:30 and I need to get the videos up. So we're going to stop here, come back for part 2. Probably not tomorrow if she uploads, the day after, and we'll just get into the second part then. Sorry about that again, but hopefully you guys enjoyed, and hopefully get to see lovely people in the next one. Bye bye.